Hey guys, Sheena here from Real World Product Marketing. What I thought I'd do today is actually cover a topic that's near and dear to my heart that I actually get a lot of interest in talking to people, whether that's aspiring product marketers, whether that's people that are looking to level up their product marketing skills and grow their own careers, or career switchers. I'm going to talk about some of the career advice to my younger self, especially as it comes to product marketing. And I'd like to share 3 mistakes that I've made that you're smart enough to avoid. So, you guys who have seen my What is Product Marketing slide have definitely seen this. For those who haven't, this is a little bit of my life, right? And I think especially as it comes to product marketing, we can probably empathize about how many decks that we end up doing. The first thing I would say is that product marketing, for those of you who are trying to get into it or are just cutting your teeth at it, it's more than just decks. I think it's a really cool function that sits at the intersection of domain expertise, strategy, business acumen, and getting shit done, which I love. But the one thing I will caution is that despite what a lot of people's LinkedIn says, including mine, career success is not linear. I'll say that again. Career success is not up and to the right. And for anyone who tells you that they've been very calculated and taken every step and that they've been getting bigger roles and bigger promotions, like, good for them. But I guarantee you, if you poke a little bit and peel behind the layers, you'll see that career success is all over the board. I mean, in terms of my own world, I came from, marketing to IT pros, developers, and system admins in the US and then in Asia. And then I went to marketing to marketers. Then I went to marketing to HR benefits people, then to running my own business, and now teaching classes online. So it's all over the place. And I guess the point I want to make on this slide is have a lot of compassion for yourself. If you don't have it figured out, you don't know what exactly that next job is, that's okay. Most of us don't. We're all figuring it out as we go. And especially within the context of product marketing, because it's a relatively new function, I would say within the last 5 to 10 years, where it's really gotten more interest at companies outside of the Microsoft, Google, Facebooks, etc. So we will define this function together. You are part of that journey, and it's definitely not necessarily going to be up and to the right. So one thing that I want to talk a lot about is how you actually build your PMM career. And I think this is so, so important that no matter what stage you are in your career, really think about and be very diligent about and purposeful getting a champion, an advocate, and a coach. Let me talk a little bit about what that means. The number one thing that I see a lot of young product marketers struggle with is, because product marketing is so undefined, they let the organization or they let their hiring manager or they let their peers define their value, and they don't advocate for themselves. In some ways, I was lucky in the sense that at Microsoft, product marketing was much more of a defined role. But at other places that I've worked, like Castlight, product marketing ping-pong between product and marketing. And I mean, when I first got there, we were still doing release notes. Like, there was just so much misinformation and lack of understanding about what product marketing was, let alone my own value. And so I think if you think about, taking a step back, was that when I was growing up, what I was taught and frankly rewarded for by Mama Zhang and Papa Zhang was grades, academic achievement, right? Placing first in sports or extracurriculars. And there was, positive village gossip, I call it. So my parents' friends or my aunties and my uncles went and told my parents, hey, Sheena is doing really well at this thing, or I saw your daughter on stage, she's doing really well, and compliments from teachers and coaches and things like that. And they gave it right back to the other kids, right? It was this infinite loop, and I was rewarded and I was motivated by all this external validation that kept me going, kept me moving. And frankly, that's what I, associated my value with. But what work rewards us for is actually a little bit different, right? If you think about work, it's much more about the day-to-day interactions. It's the positive village gossip when we aren't there. And then it's like that active sponsorship, like I said, the champion, the advocate, the sponsor, and people discussions when we aren't there. So it's not so much that we have to achieve. That's definitely part of it, getting clear results. But also, how do you advocate for yourself? How do you advocate for your team so that even when you aren't in the room, people have positive things to say about you, and that you're actually seen in a positive light beyond just your latest, greatest achievement? So here is my guidance to product marketers who are on this journey, and something I have to remind myself of as well. Number one, know your value prop and clearly communicate it, and have these three people, and they can be the same person. They're not necessarily mutually exclusive, but have these people in your back pocket that you're actively building these relationships with. Number one is a coach. It's a day-to-day person that you can be real as shit with, right? Hey, Sheena, you know, when you were in that meeting, the way you reacted and you cut that person off, it just made you sound very defensive. And in the future, you should maybe, instead of reacting to it, ask a question, and that would be more inviting to actually give feedback. You see what I'm saying? Someone who's maybe 1 to 2 years, or maybe even your same level band, and who can give you that real feedback and tell you like it is in the moment, and it's actionable, and there's a lot of mutual respect there. An advocate is someone who has similar experiences to you, which allows him or her to empathize with you and understands your issues and can offer you useful advice. Generally, advocates have been a skip level. So for example, if I was a senior PMM, maybe it was a director because there was a group product marketing manager in between, or maybe it was a group product marketing manager when I was just a PMM. What I mean by that is they're maybe 3 to 5 years or more ahead of me, so they can empathize with where I am in my journey, but they have the wisdom of context, they have the wisdom of experience to be able to give me very actionable advice on more macro things like, hey, I'm really struggling with this pricing and packaging project, or I'm really struggling with the fact that this team member is just really difficult to work with, or whatever it is. So really being active and proactive and thinking about, who's the advocate in your organization. And then lastly, a sponsor. So this is someone who's maybe a VP or even above, who has a really high status standing in the organization, who can really sponsor you in a room when you are not there. So this is really, really critical if you want to have that positive village gossip amongst a high-level group of people in an organization. And, it's simple. It just is like, oh yeah, I think we should give Sheena that project. I think we should let Sheena run with this thing. I think she's done a good job with the work that she's been doing, and I really think she could crush this and knock it out of the park. So it's having someone really high up in the organization who's just willing to stick their neck out a little bit for you. Is it someone you probably are meeting with daily, weekly? Probably not. Maybe not even monthly. Maybe it's just a quarterly check-in, a casual coffee, or even 2 times a year. You guys get where I'm going, right? So it's a coach, an advocate, and a sponsor. Again, it's not necessarily mutually exclusive. What I mean by that is the same person can be your coach and advocate depending on the size of your company, depending also on where you want to go. And if for example, you want to leave your company and just be well-known in the industry, they don't all have to be in your company either. So a coach could be someone like me that you work with, or a peer or a friend that actually has like that day-to-day interaction with you and can actually give you that actionable feedback. So really think about how you articulate your value proposition. How do you communicate it to these people? And also, like I said, how do you advocate for yourself? Because I think that's really important in any organization, no matter the size. The second thing that I definitely, and still sometimes struggle with, is I care too much what people thought catastrophically. So here are things that give me anxiety. When my boss or my skip level would say, hey, you free to catch up for a few? Hi. Or I get this random email, 101 catch up, or a text, call me. Like my heart would just drop, right? Because I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I do? Did I fuck up? Did I miss something, etc.? That didn't go well. They're gonna let me go. Someone had negative feedback. And in actuality, it was like, hey, can you just give me a quick update on the project? I'm walking into a meeting. Can I ask you a quick question? Or sometimes a compliment on a presentation. It's really funny how we are conditioned to sometimes think catastrophically, and that goes back to our primal days in terms of, protecting us from the lion or the bear that's coming into the village and being on alert. So to combat this, my guidance is to manage your manager, otherwise they will manage you. And so I want to talk a little bit about the art of managing up. So managing up has a little bit of a negative connotation around it, in the sense that it's like, ooh, you're slimy, you're just trying to play the system and play politics and, manage a perception of yourself. And I actually completely see that part of it, but there is a part of it that's actually really useful that doesn't spike those random communications or spike that anxiety within me. So the most effective one-on-ones with my manager as well as my directs have used the 515 template. It's a really, really simple template. It literally takes 5 minutes for the other person to read and 15 minutes for you to put together. And if you don't get to actually walk through your 515 on a one-on-one weekly that you may or may not have, send it via email. So literally here's the format, right? Discussion topics, key accomplishments last week, what's working, what's not working, what are the culture and team dynamics, and some priorities and upcoming to-dos. The other thing I really like about the 515 is sometimes when we go into a one-on-one with our manager, we end up talking about what's burning, right? And I'm a little shy, or sometimes I feel a little bit uncomfortable actually talking about, well, here's the things I've been doing, right? It gives you an opportunity to actually promote and advocate for yourself in terms of the things that you've accomplished, big and small, so that at least they're aware and also they know what's on your plate. So just a little trick for you to take in terms of being able to manage up, and specifically manage up to your manager, so that your anxiety doesn't spike, and we can minimize that as much as possible. So the third thing I would say I definitely didn't do early enough in my career was invest in my storytelling skills. And to me, that just sounded fluffy and soft, right? Like, I need to know what the hard skills are to get ahead in product marketing. I need to learn messaging, and positioning, and persona development, and impact and influence, and pricing and packaging. But actually, a great mentor of mine, Sanjay Dalakia, over at he was the CMO previously at Marketo, he used to have this saying that I'm stealing completely and blatantly, but he used to talk about the shovel versus the hole. And the way that he would describe it is that, most marketers worth their salt, they can talk about the shovel. They can say it's 5 feet long, it's made of aluminum, feature, function, feature, function, feature, function. But the really great ones are able to storytell around the hole. What is the problem? What are the benefit statements? What's the value? And what's the problem that ultimately you want the shovel to be able to help you solve? And I think this is something that, especially in today's world where we are oversaturated with messages and oversaturated with content, really great storytelling is able to not only hit on the head, but also win over hearts and minds. Jason Fried is the founder over at a company called Basecamp, and in his book, I really love this quote, which is, if you're trying to decide among a few people to fill a position, hire the best writer. His or her writing skills will pay off. That's because being a good writer is about more than just clear writing. Clear writing is a sign of clear thinking. Great writers know how to communicate. They make things easy to understand, and they can put themselves in someone else's shoes. I love that. And I think it's so true, especially as I've thought about hiring product marketing teams of my own. So communication really, really is the key to success. And writing is today's currency for good ideas. Most employees really, really value this. And so I wouldn't overlook this in terms of, oh, I am a good writer, or, okay, like that's something I can work on later in my career. It's a muscle, just like everything else. And I would advise you to actually take the time, take the energy, and take the mind space to invest in it. So what is a good story? Well, first of all, as we all know, people remember stories, not facts. Some of the best storytellers in the world are the folks over at Apple. You guys remember when Steve Jobs stood on stage, what did he say? He said, 1,000 songs in your pocket. What he didn't say was, we have a scroll wheel controller for easy one-handed operation. We have simple, easy-to-use operating system designed for mobile devices based on da-da-da-da-da. We have slick Mac software iTunes, which makes it easy to manage da-da-da-da. Feature, function, feature, function. He talked about the hole versus the shovel. And that is really great storytelling. Now, those of you who are in B2B product marketing are like, oh, well, that's easy, right? He's got a B2C product that everyone can wrap their heads around. But I challenge you to really think about that. At the end of the day, B2B buyers are humans as well. They're people as well. You probably have heard of B2H or B2P. And that's what this is all about. There's a really great book out there for those of you who may have heard of it. It's called Made to Stick. And they have this framework around what is the element of a good story. It's simple, it's universal, it's concrete, it's credible, it's emotional, it's story, and there's an element of surprise. Ken Adams is another great resource for those who've heard of the Story Spine. Check that out. I think that might be helpful for you as well, to at least have a framework to think about how you tell your stories. No matter what you do, whether it's telling the story about yourself, whether it's telling the story about your product, whether it's telling the story about your specific feature, at the end of the day, all of us are storytellers, and the most effective product marketers are the ones that are able to drive impact and influence internally and externally at companies through stories. So some parting thoughts. Number one, anyone would be lucky to have you as an asset in your organization. So no matter where you're starting, if you're looking at this recording and you're like, oh yeah, I know all that stuff, like anyone would be lucky to have you as an asset. So really anchor on in there. Number two, continue to play to your strengths. I'm a big believer in this. Some things are just going to naturally be easier for you than others. And I want you to be able to find a place, a management team, a company that really values those strengths. And lastly, you always have choices. I know that sometimes it feels really hard. I know you just need to take this job because you have debt or whatever it may be. But you always have choices to figure out what's the next step. You're always in control. And even if it's a mind shift, right? Like you can choose not to be miserable at your job, but you can choose to detach, or you can choose to emotionally kind of, I don't want to say de-invest, but not invest. So for those of you who aren't familiar, I actually teach an online course called Real World Product Marketing. It's a hands-on approach to teaching product marketing with a case-based methodology. So I'm a big believer that the only reason myself and other people have become really great product marketers is that we actually had hands-on practice. We wrote personas, we wrote messaging docs, we wrote go-to-market strategy, and then we had mentors and managers mark it up, and then we got better at it over time. And so that's exactly what I'll be teaching through Real World Product Marketing. It's already live, check it out. And the good news is we have 50% off until April 1 with the code FRIENDS, letting you into the inner circle. And I think it'll be really fun and a great adventure, and I look forward to working with you. With that, here's my contact information. If you have any questions, you have any comments or anything like that, I look forward to hearing from you. Hope you have a great day.